Welcome to the Potter Discussion.
Welcome back to the Potter Discussion. This is episode 109, and on today's episode, we'll be discussing what might happen if Draco Malfoy is in Fantastic Beasts and where to find them 3. Let's do this. Hello. Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to the Potter Discussion. Episode 109, we are here, and today we are talking about Draco Malfoy and what might happen if he was in Fantastic Beasts and where to find them 3, The Secrets of Dumbledore. That is a very long description, but that is the topic for today's episode. Now, of course, he will never appear in that movie, but if Draco Malfoy was in that movie, what would happen? How would the characters interact with him? How would the story be different? Those are the questions we are going to be answering on today's episode. Before we get into it, there are 2 things that I think are definitely worth mentioning. The first one being about the outro. For the Potter Discussion, if you listen to the whole episode, you will know that I always say, as always, use information to your advantage, and I will see you later. If that's new to you, then perhaps you can stick around for the first time and hear it. But if it is not, then you will know that is what I've been saying for a very long time. Since the episode How to Block the Killing Curse in Season 3, Episode 9. That's what that episode was. And I said it just came to me in that moment, and I said it just because I wanted you to use that information to your advantage. You kind of see where that came from. And I never really stopped, and that's kind of where that came from. But I think with these new discussion episodes, and with, of course, not every episode being informational, I definitely want to come up with a different thing to say. And I got inspiration from the Harry Potter Tournament of Houses. By the way, first episode, great. I highly recommend it. Second one, I haven't seen yet, but I have it. I've recorded it. I'm definitely going to watch that after I record this, so I'm looking forward to that. But Helen Mirren, the host, at the very end, she says, "And don't let the muggles get you down." And I said, whoa, that's so creative. That's so cool. That's so Harry Potter-like and, fun. And I thought, I definitely want to put that in somehow. And I'm not going to say, don't let the muggles get you down, because she said that. But I am trying to think of something to say at the very end. I don't know. I haven't thought of it yet. So the bottom line of this whole ramble is I want you to send me your ideas, because I want something good, because I'm going to be sticking with it. So send me your ideas. My Gmail is ThePotterDiscussion@gmail.com. ThePotterDiscussion@gmail.com. And things over at the Potter Discussion Instagram are kicking again, and that is at the Potter Discussion on your Instagram. You can send me a DM. You can do whatever you like. Drop a follow, all that good stuff, just so I know exactly what you want me to say for the outro. And I know that this episode is getting, this intro is getting very long, but there is one other thing that I've been bursting to say. And that is about the trailer for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them 3. It is coming out on Monday. Let's just let that sink in. If you're listening to this, the day it comes out on Sunday, then you are in luck, because it's coming out tomorrow. I would imagine the bulk of people are listening to this either on Monday or beyond, so that is out. But in the time that I am recording, and in the time that the people are listening to this, and the first day of this episode being out, the trailer is not yet released. I believe it will be, if it's on Monday. I never know the date. That's one of my worst weaknesses, but I believe it is December 13th is when the trailer will come out. So set your calendars. December 13th is the date to look out for. I'm hoping that it is good, that it is not a complete failure. I mean, it won't be, but we can always hope. I was announcing that a ton over on the Instagram at the Potter Discussion. Very exciting. A lot of excitement around this. A ton of other Harry Potter podcasters are posting about this, are talking about this. It is huge news, and I am thrilled that it is finally happening, and we're finally getting a trailer And I think that means that this is it's finally coming to fruition. We are finally getting this trailer we've all been waiting for so long. I mean, I am thrilled. I'm sure you are thrilled too. And I can't wait for this trailer to come out. I mean, it's only 2 days, but I'm recording this on Saturday, December 11th. But still, I cannot wait because this is going to be amazing. I just wish that it would come out, like yesterday or today so I could talk about it, but I have to wait a week. I have to wait a week to talk about it, so that is coming on Monday, December 13th. Mark your calendars, get ready, because it is coming hot and fast. And oh man, wow, we are already cruising along this episode, so I will close out this intro and we can get into the episode. Of course, the two links in the show notes, the SpeakPipe page link and the Google form link for anything you want to hear or say on the show, those are still up and running for a voice submission, text submission, whatever you want to do, go click those two things. It is completely free and it helps me out a bunch. Thank you so much for everything. And yeah, now let's get into this episode. Okay, so Draco Malfoy in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them 3. Of course, if the message has not already been got to your brain, he will not be in the movie. He will absolutely not anytime soon. This is completely before his time. But in this episode, we are just going to be thinking about what if. What if he was? And I was thinking about this making this episode a flip the script, but I mean, we just had one, and I was really just questioning it. But I figured that just a regular discussion for this episode would be great, and this is that episode. So in the Fantastic Beasts movies, of course, there are so many different characters that somewhat follow the guidelines of the characters we have already been hearing about in the Harry Potter movies and in all of the plays and books and everything like that. Fantastic Beasts is a somewhat similar kind of series of movies, and we are of course going to get the third movie's trailer on Monday, so that's fun again. But yeah, the characters definitely do at least somewhat line up with the characters in Harry Potter. But if Draco was in there, there's really no correlation. I think if Draco were to be in the Fantastic Beasts movies, I think we would have to assume that Draco's family wouldn't be with him, just because we know how much of an influence Draco's family is on him. And if his family was with him in Fantastic Beasts, that might mean that he would make completely different choices and he would surround himself with completely different people, just as we discussed before, to appease his parents and just to put out a good image and not just be himself and be acting for himself, which is kind of what he has to do to make it far and what he doesn't do, and it's kind of his downfall. So that is where we are right now. Draco is in Fantastic Beasts without his family because they are just going to be a huge influence on him, and that it wouldn't be a very controlled experiment if they were there. So that is the first thing we should get straight. So we've established that Draco will not be with his family, but what will he do without them in the Fantastic Beasts movies? That is really the big question and really the overarching theme of the questions we will try to answer. And kind of what I am thinking about is what will he do and how will he do it? This might seem like a very similar question, these two very similar questions, but in this case, I think they are very different because what Draco does, I think, is going to be very different from what he does in the Harry Potter series. I think Draco is going to find his group of people as fast as he can because Draco knows firsthand just how valuable having a loyal group of people around him can be. And that might be by finding people that he just, is kind of drawn to or joining a group and just seeing if it's right for him and just doing that over and over and over again, which, I mean, it might be slow, but Draco's going to try to find the group of people he can kind of operate with. He's experienced that, and he knows how much of a difference that could make. And, I mean, even in like a friendship way, he will not be alone, but Draco also has to have his group of people if he wants to do, really anything, because that is kind of how it goes. That is how the whole Harry Potter, how his whole life is kind of built. He has people around him that help him, and I don't think that'll be any different in the Fantastic Beasts movies if he decides to do that, because he knows exactly how to be successful. And although the decisions that his parents made for him weren't the best, he still knows that those are good decisions to make if they are made in good faith and if they are seen as a tool of good and not a tool of evil, which is exactly how Draco wants to live in the Harry Potter series. We see his parents forcing him into all of these different roles and positions and all these different things that Draco just isn't ready for and he doesn't want to participate in. So even if Draco has no friends and no companions, what will he do with that? How will he survive? Well, let's just assume that he is with our group. If he passes him in the street, if they have a partner for something, if he's at the French ministry and Draco's at the French ministry and it just randomly helps Newt escape, something like that, and Newt thanks Draco. What happens after that? That is really where that's where the tea is, and that's really where we have to really consider what might Newt do and how might Newt react, because those are really the big questions that I think answering would definitely help us along. So Newt thanks Draco. He says, "Thank you, Draco. Thank you, Mr. Malfoy, sir, whatever." We all know Newt. He's shy, he's polite, all that. So he says, "Thank you, Mr. Malfoy. You helped me out so much. What can I do to repay you?" What does Draco do? What does Draco do? How does Draco respond? This is really where the first kind of test of character comes into play, because the way that Draco responds to this will really define the way that he goes on away from Newt and really how his life is impacted by this interaction. If he says, "I don't want anything in return, just be careful and, follow what you want to do, not what other people tell you." And that's kind of what Draco was feeling in himself, and he had the courage to say what he really was thinking, which is something that he really struggled with in the Harry Potter series. And if Draco says that, then Newt will likely say, "You're a good person. I think that I want to, bring you onto my team and, let's work together." But if Draco says something along the lines of, "I want you to do this for me. I want you to kill this person. I want you to do this," showing his superiority and using his favor the way his father would, that's when Newt will go, "No, sorry, I can't do that." And Newt will just remove himself and they will never cross paths, and they might even become enemies. Because we saw how Grindelwald was impacting Newt, because he was doing evil things and Newt was recognizing the evilness of what Grindelwald was doing. Newt immediately saw that he didn't want any part of what Grindelwald was doing just simply because of the actions that he was doing. And if Newt saw what Draco was doing and kind of saw himself and recognized the good in Draco, then Newt might want to stick with Draco. But if Newt saw more of Grindelwald and more of the greedy, kind of mean type of person, that means that Newt will not have anything to do with Draco, and he will turn the other way, and he will go as far as he can. So, that is kind of where we stand, and that is really the turning point of this story, of what will Newt do in the face of meeting Draco. Next up, I want to talk about something that I think is definitely along the lines of the first thing we were talking about. And that is all about his family and his friends. Like I said, we are assuming that Draco is doing all of these things without his family and without the people that he knows. We are operating off of the assumption that Draco is alone and he has to make friends. But what might happen if his friends and family were with him versus if they weren't? And that is what we're going to be talking about now. What might he do without his friends, and what might he do if they were with him? I think the first thing that we can assume is Draco will be completely different. Again, we saw him acting very differently from the Harry Potter series. When with his family, without his family, we saw his conflicting sides. I mean, more than two. But we saw the depth of character in Draco and how difficult it was for him to do things that his father would do and the things that his father wanted him to do. So if we kind of take that out of the equation, how is Draco different? Well, even in this scenario, there are two possibilities. One could be Draco was born without his family, and one could be that Draco was born and then raised and then put into this Fantastic Beasts universe without his family. And I think if the first scenario of this section of scenarios is the case, if he was born into a completely different family, I think he is going to be similar to Newt, even similar to Harry. Because he recognizes good, and his family was really the deciding factor, and the name Malfoy doesn't mean the same thing to Draco, because he understands the name and his family and his friends, how they impact everyone else, and how they impacted him. But if he is just not even around them, if his name means nothing, then he will be completely different. And I think everyone listening will agree that the way you are raised is a huge part of how you are acting when you are an adult, which makes sense, and especially for Draco. We saw how influential his father was in Draco's raising, and we saw how Draco's life impacted not only his friends and his family, but himself. How the things that he was doing, how the things that his father was making him do was detrimental to Draco's mental health and just proper childhood life. His life was damaged by the things that the Malfoy family made him do. And if he was not in the Malfoy family, then he would likely be so much better off for it. I could not say this enough. If Draco could just leave his family, he would be happy. And this scenario, I think, is exactly how that happens. He is happy if he is not with his family. I think that is basically the bottom line. But let's pretend for a second that the opposite is true. Let's say that Draco's family is with him. What happens next? I think we should start off by saying very similar things will happen to Draco. He will have the same kind of childhood. He will have the same friends. He will have the same family around him. He will just be in the same state of mind. I will say that he would probably turn out very similar than in the Harry Potter series. But let's say that if he was raised with his family and friends and then released, I think now we have these two different scenarios of if he stayed with his family and if he didn't. If he stayed with his family, I would imagine that they would do very, very similar things to the Harry Potter series. I mean, they have similar figures, like I was saying at the beginning of this episode. There are very similar figures between the Harry Potter series and the Fantastic Beast movies. Because we have the good families, the bad families, we have the Ministry, we have all these different wizards and witches from around the world, and we have the big bad, Voldemort and Grindelwald, and we have the Mentor, which is, that is the only constant. Dumbledore is the mentor in both series, which is, first of all, that is crazy. Dumbledore is Jude Law, of course, portrays Dumbledore beautifully in the Fantastic Beasts movies, and Michael Gambon and Richard Harris are very, very perfect for the different aspects of Dumbledore and Harry Potter series. But that age gap, I think this is gonna be the ramble for this This is going to be the ramble for this segment. I am on the spot research. I will be back with the numbers. All right, so here they are. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them 1 takes place in 1926, New York. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, The Crimes of Grindelwald takes place in 1927. And in this movie, wait for it, Dumbledore is 46 years old. 46. I mean, 46 years old. That is crazy. And in the Harry Potter movies, he's in his hundreds. That is just wow. I mean, that is crazy. That is really crazy. But that's the ramble for this episode. Let's get back to this episode because my mind is blown. This next question, I think, is going to be very important to answer. And that is, would Draco speak in favor of his side, or would he just stand by and watch as they won or as they lost? Alright, this is a question that I think will really determine how Draco will branch out. Let's say he meets Newt and then they have their interaction and he's kind of blown off course. But this is really where if he can right himself or if he can't. Will Draco fight with his side? And again, this is really coming into play with Draco either being on the good side or being either on the bad side. And I think we should just call it his side. The people he supports, because there's never going to be a way to tell exactly what side Draco would be on. But let's just call it his side, because that's exactly what it is. So we are definitely going to be just thinking about, would Draco fight with his side? Would he not? Just kind of, what's the motivation behind it? And would he really speak up for the people he is fighting with? In my notes for this episode, these were two different talking points, but I think we can definitely combine it into one. Would Draco speak out with his side, and would he fight with his side? I'm just saying the answer. I think he wouldn't speak out for his side, but and he would fight with his side. That's just my opinion, because that's exactly what we see in Harry Potter. He's not, Voldemort's great, yeah, Voldemort's great, yeah, and then at Hogwarts he's like, like by himself, when he's just with Harry or other people besides the Slytherins, or without his friends, he's like, oh man, Dumbledore, come on, stop me, I'm doing bad things, Dumbledore, you know? I think Draco really isn't speaking out in any sense of the word, or words, but he is fighting, and it's fighting for Dumbledore, it's fighting for Voldemort, it's fighting for his parents, he's just fighting in general. He's basically just fighting everyone, but in reality only fighting for himself, which is kind of a huge mountain that we have to climb over later. But that is really the way that we saw him in the Harry Potter series, and I think that would be reflected in the Fantastic Beasts. Because, he's not a different person. He is still the same old Draco Malfoy. He does bad things, and then he gets away with it. But, there's just so much to unpack. But assuming that Draco doesn't grow up with his family, and he's a different person, he's not going to speak out, but he is going to fight. I think that's basically it. That's the bottom line of this whole thing. Draco will continue to be Draco. There's really nothing that we can do to get around that, and there's really nothing we can say that would kind of put off that fact. And although he might speak out if he finds motivation, if he feels comfortable enough to, but he probably would not. That's just the Draco way. Family and friends or not, Draco is always going to be looking out for himself. And it might not be selfish, it might not be in the way that we see it, but he will always be looking out for himself. That is basically the one thing that should be a takeaway from every Draco episode. Draco knows what's good for him, and he does his darn best to make whatever he sees best for himself happen. We can see that in the Harry Potter movies and in the Harry Potter books alone. We see Draco making decisions on the spot, flipping the sides, making irrational decisions, and helping Voldemort and helping Dumbledore, and flipping and flipping and flipping, and just turning everything over in his head and just clumping it all into one big ball. Draco is just such a complicated person. There's almost no way to tell exactly what he will decide and exactly what is going on inside of his head and why he would be thinking the thoughts that he is and does. Draco is just too complicated a person to evaluate and think and predict what might happen. We have to go off of what we have and just try our best to see exactly what might happen, to see how Draco will react to the world, how the world will react to Draco. There are so many layers that are too deep and are too dense to unpack the entire box of problems and issues, and it is just surrounded by so much stuff. Draco just has so much stuff going on. I kind of imagine it like he gets a package in the mail. Draco's life is like a package in the mail. The goods are inside the package that he ordered. It's valuable. There's a product inside that he was waiting for a long time, and it's surrounded by all of his issues. And the good thing that he wants is in the middle of that box, but he has to open it. He has to go through all of the wrapping, all of the packaging, everything. He has to find the scissors to open. I mean, the struggle to finding scissors is real, but Draco would definitely experience that too. And he would see how difficult it is to pull the good in his life out of the bad that is the package that he would order. He wants the good. He wants the sunshine and rainbows and happiness and laughter and skipping through the fields of rainbows with big fuzzy bears and kitties and puppies and rainbows and leprechauns. He wants that. Well, maybe not quite that, but Draco wants to be happy. And in his situation with his family and surrounded by all the people that he is in the Harry Potter series, that just isn't possible. Because he keeps trying to open that package, but the package is sealed shut. The people around him are just keep piling on the problems and keep piling on the things that Draco just can't do. And that is what would stop him from doing the things that he would want to in the Fantastic Beasts series. He has way too many things to do, and he will always be the same person. He will always have the same issues, if not in the same form, if not in the same time. He will always be himself. And again, that's the one thing I think we should all learn from this, that Draco Malfoy is Draco Malfoy, and he has his problems and he has his traits, but no matter what, Draco will never change. And I think that is it. Nice. Oh, right. My recording is 30 minutes on the dot, so that is very convenient. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, outro. I need an outro. If you're hearing this, you care a little bit at least, so send me any outro ideas you have. ThePotterDiscussion at gmail.com, and that is ThePotterDiscussion at gmail.com. The two links in the show notes, the SpeakPipe page link and the Google form link. And again, the Instagram account at ThePotterDiscussion. You can go ahead and drop a follow, send me a DM. I mean, even your episode ideas, I would love to hear. There's some great memes, some great facts, some great updates. That is basically your one-stop shop for everything Harry Potter. So that is great. That is amazing. And yeah, I mean, there's no outro. I mean, this is so weird. I'm gonna end the episode without saying anything. What do I do? This is so weird. I've never ended an episode without saying without an outro. Have a good week. Don't let the muggle. No, I can't say that. Have a good time at your work and at school. Yeah. So I'll see you next week. Oh, yes. Yes, okay. I'm gonna say my old intro. This is a throwback. I mean, I have nothing else to say, so stay safe and wear your mask. Bye.
This was the Potter Discussion.